the perfect imitation. He's not my Ben anymore. My fiancé, Ben, slowly started changing in imperceptible ways after we moved into our new house. It began with tiny behavioral quirks, then subtle physical shifts, a creeping uncanniness that made me doubt my own sanity. I realized it wasn't Ben at all, but a horrifyingly perfect imitation that had replaced him, and it knew everything about our life, slowly trying to erase my memory of the real man and assume his identity completely. It started subtly. So subtly, in fact, that for weeks I convinced myself I was losing my mind, or that the stress of moving into our new house was finally breaking me. Ben and I had been together for 6 years, engaged for one. He was my rock, my safe harbor, the person who knew me better than anyone. Our love wasn't a whirlwind romance. It was a deep, quiet, comforting kind of knowing. We'd bought this old Victorian on the outskirts of town, a real fixer-upper, but with good bones and a wraparound porch I'd always dreamed of. It was supposed to be our fresh start, our forever home. The first thing I noticed was his eyes. Ben had these warm, crinkling lines at the corners when he smiled, and his irises were a unique blend of hazel, flecked with gold. After about a month in the new house, I'd catch him looking at me and his eyes. They were the right color, the right shape, but they seemed flatter, like the light in them had dimmed slightly. And the crinkles weren't quite right, or they appeared a beat too late after his smile. I'd dismiss it. "You're tired, love," he'd say, pulling me close, and his hug felt just like Ben. Then came the little habits. Ben always put his car keys on the hook by the door, without fail. One morning, I found them on the kitchen counter. "Forgot them, babe," I'd asked, teasingly. He just gave a small, almost imperceptible shrug. Ben didn't shrug, not like that. He'd usually offer some sarcastic excuse or a sheepish grin. Another time, he left the toilet seat up. Ben, the meticulously tidy one, who always chided me for my own forgetfulness. I mentioned it, and he just stared at me blankly for a second too long before apologizing. "Oh, right, sorry." The apology felt hollow. The unnerving details accumulated. He started using phrases I didn't recognize, small turns of idiom that weren't him. He'd never say, "bless your heart," before, but now it occasionally slipped out. He'd forget little inside jokes, the kind of things we'd established years ago. I'd bring up a shared memory, like our disastrous first attempt at making sourdough bread, and he'd nod, smile, but the warmth wasn't there in his eyes. It was like he was recalling the memory from a script, not reliving it with me. The physical changes became more pronounced, yet still subtle enough to drive me mad with doubt. Ben had a small, almost invisible scar just above his left eyebrow from a childhood bike accident. It was always there, a tiny, raised line. One morning, I noticed it was gone, completely. The skin was smooth. I stared at him at breakfast, trying to be subtle. "Did you do something to your eyebrow?" I asked, trying to sound casual. He raised an eyebrow, the wrong one maybe, and furrowed his brow. "What, no? Why?" His voice was Ben's voice, the timbre, the slight gravelly quality. But the question felt defensive, sharp. I backed down, my heart pounding. My sleep schedule fell apart. I'd lie awake next to him, listening to his breathing. It sounded like Ben's breathing. But sometimes it would be too even, too silent, then suddenly switch to a faint snore that wasn't quite his asterisk snore. I started sleeping with the lamp on, just so I could occasionally glance over and reassure myself. Only the reassurance never came. His profile, so familiar, would sometimes look too sharp, too defined, almost like a drawing rather than a living person. Or his hair would part on the wrong side, and then I'd blink, and it would be Ben again. Perfectly, agonizingly Ben. I tried talking to him. "Ben," I started one evening, watching him read a book, a genre he never usually touched. "Are you feeling okay? You've been different lately." He put the book down, slowly, deliberately. His gaze met mine, and for the first time I felt a chilling stillness behind his eyes that went beyond tiredness. It was a blankness, a void that was utterly alien. "Different house, Sarah?" he asked, his voice smooth, calm, too calm. "I feel perfectly fine. Perhaps you're feeling the stress of the house. You've been a little jumpy." The accusation hung in the air. He turned back to his book, his shoulders slightly hunched, a posture Ben never adopted. I started taking secret photos of him on my phone, trying to capture the inconsistencies. But when I'd review them later, they'd look perfectly normal. Every angle, every expression, unmistakably Ben. I was losing my mind. Was this gaslighting? Was he trying to trick me? But Ben wasn't cruel. He wasn't capable of this subtle, psychological torture. This wasn't Ben. One afternoon, I found a box of old photos in the attic. A shoebox filled with snapshots from our university days. There was one of Ben grinning, his arm around me. And there it was, a distinctive mole tiny just below his left earlobe. I knew it. I'd kissed it 1,000 times. I went downstairs, my heart hammering against my ribs. Ben was in the kitchen, making coffee, humming a tune he never hummed. "Ben," I said, my voice trembling. He turned. "Yes, love." I walked up to him, my eyes fixed on his neck. His left earlobe. The skin was smooth, pristine. The mole was gone. It had vanished completely, leaving no trace. A wave of icy dread washed over me, so potent it almost brought me to my knees. This wasn't Ben, it couldn't be. My Ben had that mole. My Ben had warmth in his eyes. My Ben knew our jokes. "Who are you?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. He stopped humming. The smile slid off his face, replaced by that unnerving stillness. His eyes, now devoid of any pretense of warmth, seemed to deepen, becoming twin pools of cold, dark glass. "What a silly question, Sarah," he said, his voice dropping to a low, resonant tone that made the hairs on my arms stand on end. It was Ben's voice, but stripped bare, an imitation without the soul. "I am your Ben." He reached out a hand, and his fingers, which usually felt so familiar, now seemed slightly too long, too pale, almost translucent at the tips. I flinched back, stumbling against the kitchen counter. He didn't move, just stood there, watching me, his head tilted ever so slightly to the side. "You've been observing me," he continued, his voice still unnervingly calm, a detached curiosity in his tone. "That's quite all right. It helps with the integration process." "Integration," I croaked, my throat suddenly dry. "Yes, becoming him, becoming us, it's almost complete. There were a few inconsistencies in the original material, but I believe I've corrected them." He gestured vaguely at his own face, then at the empty space where the mole should have been. "Small defects, easily remedied." My stomach lurched. "Original material. Where's Ben? What did you do to him?" A faint, almost imperceptible smile touched his lips, a chilling, cold curve. "The original served its purpose, a template. Its resonance is now part of mine. And soon, yours will be too." He took a slow, deliberate step towards me. "Don't you feel it, Sarah? The subtle shift. The way your memories of asterisk him are starting to fade, replaced by me. The way the edges of your past with him are blurring." He was right. As he spoke, a terrifying realization bloomed in my mind. Memories of specific moments with Ben, moments I cherished, felt slippery, like trying to grasp smoke. The details were there, the events, but the feeling, the emotional imprint of my asterisk Ben, was becoming indistinct, replaced by a bland, generic feeling that could have been anyone. This imitation wasn't just physical. It was eroding my very recollection of the man I loved, trying to claim his emotional territory in my mind. "You're erasing him," I whispered, the horror of it paralyzing me. "A necessity for a perfect union," he replied, taking another step. His movements were fluid, graceful, almost too perfect. He struggled towards the end a little, made it more difficult. "But you, Sarah, you've been so wonderfully accommodating with your observations. So much data." I stumbled backwards, reaching blindly for the back door. The idea of living my life with this thing, this empty vessel that was wearing my Ben's skin, was worse than death. It was the ultimate violation, a parasitic theft of identity and love. As my hand fumbled for the doorknob, I risked a glance at his face. His eyes were no longer Ben's hazel. They were now a uniform, bottomless black, reflecting nothing, absorbing everything. And from his mouth, instead of breath, I swore I saw a faint, gray mist curling out like smoke. He lunged, not with Ben's usual quick, strong movements, but with an unnatural, gliding speed, as if he simply flowed across the floor. I yanked the door open and burst out into the late afternoon light, not bothering to look back. I ran blindly through the overgrown garden, past the porch I'd dreamed of, out onto the unfamiliar road. I didn't stop until my lungs burned and my legs gave out, collapsing beside a ditch miles away from the house. I never went back for anything. The police were useless. They took my statement about a prowler, then gave me sympathetic looks about stress-induced paranoia. My parents, seeing my distraught state, gently suggested therapy. I'm in therapy now and I try to move on. The house sits empty, listed online for a ridiculously low price, never selling. But sometimes when I'm walking down the street, I'll see a man with Ben's exact build, his hair, his way of holding his head. My heart will leap, then plummet, remembering the mole, the eyes, the way the air around him would feel wrong. And sometimes, late at night, when the room is quiet and dark, I close my eyes and try to remember Ben's laugh, his particular scent, the exact feeling of his hand in mine. And I find myself struggling. The memories are there, the facts, but the emotional warmth, the specific essence of Ben, feels strangely muted, blurred, as if a part of my own mind is being slowly, subtly overwritten. And I wonder if the integration process isn't quite finished yet. If a part of that perfect imitation is still out there, subtly feeding on my fading memories, quietly becoming more and more real, until the real Ben is nothing but a phantom echo in a mind he once fully inhabited.